The sacred pattern, why the chosen ones always appear in times of collapse. Have you ever wondered why, in our darkest hours, a singular figure often rises from obscurity to change the course of history? Why does the universe seem to summon extraordinary souls precisely when society is unraveling? That is no coincidence. It is a sacred pattern. I want you to picture something. You're standing alone in an ancient desert, wind sweeping sand across your feet, the sky above you bruised with storm clouds. And from the horizon, a figure approaches. They don't speak with words but with presence. They're not famous, not royal, not even powerful in the material sense. But something in your bones tells you this person is chosen. And that's where we begin, because this video isn't just about history. It's about the hidden architecture of the spirit. It's about those rare individuals who become instruments of divine timing, the chosen ones. Not because they were better, but because they were ready to be broken open.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You see, the chosen ones don't emerge from luxury or comfort. They rise from chaos, from collapse, from the ashes of everything familiar. The world does not birth chosen ones during peace, it calls them forth during storms. And that's the first wisdom you need to hear. The universe never wastes pain. It molds it. It shapes it. And when humanity cries out in confusion or despair, when civilizations forget their soul, the balance of life demands restoration. And so, the cosmos whispers into the heart of one brave soul, it's time. And that one, often misunderstood, often unprepared, becomes a living message. A bridge between the mundane and the miraculous. Take Joan of Arc, a teenage peasant girl who couldn't read or write, yet said she heard divine voices that told her to save her nation. France was disintegrating. The 100 Years' War had drained its spirit dry. And into that void Joan walked, not with a sword at first, but with a conviction so deep it shook kings. She led armies not by power, but by faith. She was burned alive, yes, but fire cannot kill a soul set ablaze by purpose. What makes her a chosen one is not just what she did, but why she did it, because she listened to the voice within, even when it cost her everything. Ask yourself this now: how often do you silence your inner voice because it sounds inconvenient, irrational, or terrifying? Joan didn't, and that is why she became eternal. Then there is Nikola Tesla, the man who saw electricity not as a tool, but as a language. He received visions not metaphorically, but literally. He would see machines in his mind fully formed, down to the last bolt, without sketching anything. He once said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." Tesla tapped into the invisible. He claimed to understand frequencies that the scientific world still hasn't caught up to. He died penniless, mocked, and alone. But the chosen ones are rarely understood in their own time. The test of the chosen is not applause, but alignment with truth, even when the world rejects it. Tesla's legacy is proof. The receiver was never broken. It was too advanced for the noise of the world around it. And then, to go even deeper, we must sit in stillness with Siddhartha Gautama, known to the world as the Buddha. Born into royalty, destined to live in luxury, he had everything, everything the ego could want. But something in him knew, this is not real. He left it all: wife, child, power. And he walked into the wilderness, into suffering, into silence. He sat beneath a tree for 49 days, vowing not to rise until he understood the truth behind suffering. And when he rose, he did not come back with commandments or fear. He came back with a mirror. He offered humanity not a religion, but a path. A way of seeing that pain is not the enemy, it is the teacher. We suffer because we cling to what is temporary. We suffer because we forget who we are. Buddha remembered, and now it's your turn to ask, what are you clinging to that is keeping you asleep? There is a secret truth that threads through every story of every chosen one, and it's this: before they rose, they were shattered by life, by betrayal, by rejection. The universe does not hand over power to the untested. It refines the soul through fire. And so the chosen are first stripped of everything: reputation, comfort, certainty. They are left to face themselves, naked in the silence of their own becoming. Because only in that emptiness can the true voice emerge. That's the paradox. The chosen ones are not born with power. They become power by losing everything else. So ask yourself now, not with your mind, but with your heart, have you been broken lately? Have you been brought to your knees by life? What if that wasn't destruction, but initiation? What if your heartbreak was the universe breaking you open, so your real self could emerge? You see, we all crave greatness, but few are willing to endure the sacred disintegration that precedes it. We want to be chosen, but we fear the fire. And yet, the fire is the only way through. Joan, Tesla, Buddha, they are not anomalies. They are reflections. They show us what is possible when a soul says yes to the call. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. And now the question comes to you not as entertainment, but as an invitation. What if the pain you're avoiding is actually the path to your deeper destiny? What if the suffering isn't punishment, but preparation? What if you too are being called not to save the world, but to remember who you are, and in doing so, illuminate the darkness for others? This isn't just a history lesson. This is a mirror, a transmission, and we've only just begun. The cosmic contract, what every chosen one must sacrifice to awaken their power. Every chosen one in history, without exception, has signed a contract, though not with ink or words, but with the very essence of their soul. This contract is invisible, sacred, and irreversible. It is not made with governments, religions, or kings. It is made with the universe itself. And it has one clause that cannot be negotiated: sacrifice. When we speak of sacrifice, we're not just talking about the loss of comfort or wealth. No, this is a deeper, more soul-shaking surrender. To awaken true power, the chosen must give up the very things the ego clings to: identity, safety, attachment, and even the illusion of control. This is not a punishment. It is a purification. And this is what most people miss when they romanticize the idea of being chosen. They imagine glory, fame, or supernatural gifts. But they forget the price. They forget that before the miracle, there is the mourning. Before the rising, there is the rending apart. And this brings us to the next two chosen ones on our journey: figures who not only changed history, but who endured unimaginable loss to do so. Let's speak now of Malcolm X, a man born into a crucible of violence, racism, and abandonment. His father was murdered, his mother institutionalized. As a young man, he fell into crime, into the shadows. But even there, in prison, something sacred ignited within him. He began to read, to study, to see through the illusions that had held him captive, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually. He didn't just wake up. He chose to wake up. And with that awakening came the sacrifice. He gave up his old name. He gave up his past. And eventually, when he realized even his own movement was no longer aligned with truth, he gave up that too. He walked away from comfort, safety, and community to stand alone in alignment with his evolving understanding of unity and justice. And for this, he was assassinated. But here is the paradox we must understand. Death does not end the story of the chosen one. It completes it. Malcolm's voice, once silenced, now echoes louder than ever. His legacy is not just in his speeches, but in his courage to evolve publicly, to question openly, and to die authentically. His life was a series of sacrifices, but each one stripped away illusion and revealed more of his soul. And then we come to Moses not as a religious figure, but as a symbol of the archetypal liberator, born into a system of oppression, raised in privilege, and then cast out into exile. Moses didn't want to be chosen. When the divine voice called him from the burning bush, he resisted. He said, "Why me?" He doubted his speech, his worth, his readiness. But the universe doesn't choose those who are perfect. It chooses those who are willing. And so Moses sacrificed the illusion of safety. He gave up his status in Pharaoh's palace. He gave up a quiet life in Midian. And he returned to the heart of tyranny to free his people not by force, but by faith. 40 years in the wilderness followed. Not because he failed, but because the chosen ones must be emptied before they can lead. The desert is not a punishment, it is the classroom of the soul. Have you ever felt like your life was a desert? Like you were wandering, lost, without direction? What if that's exactly where the universe wanted you, stripped of distractions, so you could finally hear the divine whisper again? The sacrifices of the chosen are not always visible. Sometimes it's the internal losses that cut deepest. The loss of certainty, the loss of belonging, the loss of being understood. These sacrifices are brutal, but they are also sacred, because in giving them up, the chosen ones make space for something far greater to come through them. They become vessels, and vessels must first be emptied. So the question turns inward. What are you still holding on to that is keeping your vessel full of noise, fear, or ego? What do you fear losing more than you desire truth? Because until you're willing to let it go, your true power cannot descend. This contract, the cosmic contract, is not forced upon anyone. It is accepted in silence, often without knowing. It begins the moment you say, "I want to know who I really am," or "I want to live with purpose." That's when the universe begins rearranging everything, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And that preparation will often look like loss. Friends will drift away. Jobs will collapse. Old dreams will die. But please hear this. Nothing real can be destroyed, and nothing false can remain. What falls away was never yours to begin with. The chosen ones learn to let go not with bitterness, but with reverence. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where they must stand alone. No applause, no validation, just stillness, just the voice within. That voice is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is a whisper. But it is true. And when you follow it, even when it costs you everything, you begin to touch the edge of your own divinity. That's when the power comes not from force, but from alignment. Alignment with the deeper truth of why you're here. So many people want the gifts of the chosen, the insight, the influence, the peace, but few want the process. Because the process is death, not of the body, but of the ego. The chosen ones die to who they thought they were, so they can live as who they really are. And this death is terrifying, but it is also liberating. Because on the other side of that surrender is not emptiness, it's clarity. It's the ability to move through life, not as a seeker, but as a servant of truth. And so here we are. We've walked with Joan in fire, with Tesla in isolation, with Buddha in silence, with Malcolm in revolution, and with Moses in exile. And now we must ask, what about you? Are you willing to let go of the life you've constructed to receive the life you were created for? Are you willing to stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Because if you're watching this, maybe you weren't just curious. Maybe you were being called. And the call always begins with sacrifice. Not because the universe wants to hurt you, but because it wants to hollow you out so it can fill you with something eternal. This is the cosmic contract. Not everyone signs it, but those who do, they don't just change the world. They reveal a world that was always waiting to be remembered. The final awakening, what the chosen ones leave behind for you to discover. And now we reach the sacred conclusion, not just of this story, but of a pattern that echoes through time, through soul, through the very architecture of the human spirit. Every chosen one, no matter their era, culture, or creed, leaves behind something far more powerful than ideas, inventions, or victories. They leave behind keys. Not literal ones, but spiritual codes embedded in their lives, their choices, their sacrifices that remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to decipher. You see, the chosen ones did not come to be worshipped. They came to remind, to awaken, to act as mirrors to the sleeping parts of ourselves. And when their physical bodies died, their essence remained encoded in the field of consciousness. That means you do not need to walk where Buddha walked, or read every word Malcolm ever spoke, or study the energy diagrams of Tesla to access their wisdom. You only need to align. The final gift of the chosen ones is not what they did, it's what they unlocked in us. Because their stories are not just history, they are templates for transformation. As we unravel this final layer, I want you to ask yourself a question so deep that it may disturb you. What if everything you admire in the chosen ones is actually a reflection of a dormant potential in yourself? What if all this time you weren't meant to follow them but to become like them? Not in action, but in essence. Because the truth is, they were never chosen by an external god or a cosmic lottery. They were chosen because they chose themselves. They reached a point where they could no longer betray their inner knowing. And the moment they said yes, not to fame, not to greatness, but to truth, the universe rearranged itself around their intent. That's the real awakening. It's not dramatic. It doesn't involve lightning bolts or angelic music. It is quiet, subtle, terrifying in its simplicity. It is the choice to be fully awake in a world that profits from your sleep. And that choice, my friend, is available to you right now. So what do the chosen ones leave behind for us to discover? First, they leave behind courage, not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk forward despite it. Every chosen one felt doubt. Every chosen one faced rejection. But they walked anyway. That means courage is not genetic. It is not earned. It is summoned, and you can summon it too. Second, they leave behind clarity, the ability to see through the fog of illusion, to not be hypnotized by societal scripts, trends, or collective anxiety. You pierce through the noise and ask, what is real for me? What does my soul know that my mind has forgotten? And finally, they leave behind permission. Permission to be different, to be misunderstood, to be intense, to be messy, to be someone who doesn't fit into any system because you were not born to fit, you were born to shift. But here's the final twist. The chosen ones do not just live in history. They live among us. And sometimes they don't even know they're chosen. Sometimes the most powerful souls are hidden in the most ordinary lives. The single mother who keeps showing up for her children with love, despite unbearable hardship. The teenager who refuses to bully others, even when it costs them popularity. The man who walks away from a high-paying job to follow a whisper that no one else hears. These people are not less chosen than the prophets or saints. They are simply living their initiation quietly. So ask yourself now, how many signs have already come to you? How many moments have whispered, there's more? And how many times have you turned away because it felt too big, too overwhelming, too uncertain? If you've ever felt like you don't belong, like you see through things others don't, like your heart breaks for a world that seems blind, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're awakening. You're sensing the call. And maybe, just maybe, you're being invited to step into your own version of that sacred role. Not to be famous, not to be followed, but to be faithful to the truth that lives uniquely inside of you. Because the final truth is this: the world doesn't need more followers. It needs more awakened ones. It needs more people who are willing to walk through fire, to sit in silence, to lose everything false in order to gain what is real. The chosen ones leave behind a path, but it is not straight. It is not paved. It is wild and thorned and often lonely. But it is also radiant, alive, holy. And it is waiting for you, because in the end, this video is not about Joan or Tesla or Buddha or Malcolm or Moses. It is about you, your courage, your clarity, your contract. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be ready. You only need to be willing. Willing to listen, willing to let go, willing to remember. And so I leave you with this one final question, one final spark. If you are being called right now to step into your deeper purpose, will you answer? Or will you wait for someday, not realizing that today was the moment your soul chose long before you were even born? The chosen ones are not legends. They are reminders. And the reminder is this: you were never meant to just survive this life. You were meant to illuminate it. The path is open. The invitation is eternal. Now the choice is yours.